So this is how you'll go about doing this experiment. First, you'll weigh the specified amount of 2-chloro-2-methylpropane into an Erlenmeyer flask, weigh it on the balance carefully and record the mass. Then you will add the solvent and you will start the timer. You start the timer when you add the solvent. All right. Next, you will add about 1 to 2 milliliters of the sodium hydroxide solution that's furnished and record that volume of sodium hydroxide that you add. You'll add that volume of sodium hydroxide from the burette so that you can easily read from the burette the volume of sodium hydroxide that you'll add. Next, what you do is you wait and watch for a color change. So why does the color change? Well, all right, so what I didn't mention before was that with the solvent, you'll also add phenolphthalein, and phenolphthalein turns pink when it's in a basic solution. So when you add the sodium hydroxide, the solution will be bright pink because it's going to be very basic. Then as the reaction progresses, the hydrochloric acid is formed as a product of the solvolysis reaction. The hydrochloric acid that's formed will neutralize the sodium hydroxide that you've just added. So at the time that enough hydrochloric acid has just formed that can neutralize the sodium hydroxide that you added, what's going to happen is you'll see that bright pink color fade and the solution will go colorless. So when the color changes, in other words, when it goes from bright pink to colorless, then you will record the time that elapsed. You'll record the elapsed time since the time that you started the timer, since the time that you added the solvent. Then you don't stop the timer. Keep the timer going through the whole experiment. Keep the timer going through the whole experiment. But after the color goes away, after you record that time, then you again add 1 to 2 milliliters of the sodium hydroxide solution and record the volume again of the sodium hydroxide that you added. Again, when you add the sodium hydroxide, the color will be bright pink, and then after that you'll wait for the bright pink color to disappear, for the solution to go colorless. Record that time, the time that the timer says. When the color goes away, when the color becomes colorless, record that time. Do not stop the timer, but then once it becomes colorless, again, you add 1 to 2 milliliters of sodium hydroxide. And repeat the process until you've added up till about 15 to 18 milliliters of sodium hydroxide. At that point, you'll be close to the 75% completion of the whole reaction, which you calculate in the pre-lab. And at that point, then, you can go on to the second phase in the experiment, in which you'll drive the reaction to completion and titrate it to an endpoint.